is LGR, London Greek Radio.
Ο αγαπημένος σου ελληνικός σταθμός στα social media. Ακολούθησέ μας στο Instagram και στο TikTok, βρες μας στο Twitter και κάνε like στη σελίδα μας στο Facebook London Greek Radio.
I'm here at the World Travel Market in London, where tourism leaders from across the globe have gathered to explore the future of travel. One of the major highlights of this year's event is the release of the World's Best Cities 2026, reports by Resonance, a global study that ranks cities based on their livability and prosperity. Joining me now is Chris Fair, President and CEO of Resonance, the company behind this influential report. Chris, thank you for joining us and congratulations on another fascinating edition of World's Best Cities. London has been named the world's best city once again for the 11th year in a row. What is it about London that keeps it at the very top year after year?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. It's interesting to observe over the 11 years that we've done this ranking. London continues to come out number one despite changes to the methodology, and which really speaks to the multidimensional character of London, that while it only ranks number one for prosperity, it's very strong in all of the different categories that we look at with respect to livability, lovability, and of course with the global perception data that we incorporate, asking people in 30 countries where they most want to live, visit, and where they think the best job opportunities are. London really ranks in the top three across all three of those dimensions. So it's really its strength across all three dimensions that drives it to the number one ranking overall.
Thank you, Chris. You're unveiling the World Best Cities 2026 report right here at the World Travel Market. Why did you choose this global stage for the big reveal?
Well, obviously having London as the number one city made sense to release the report in London. There's also some interesting data that we've collected as we think about where people want to visit, which is one of the factors that we look at in the lovability dimension. And there's a lot of key insights there for the travel and tourism industry as we see people around the world increasingly wanting to travel to the same places. And perhaps our rankings are partly to blame for that we're reinforcing this loop, so that while we see issues around over-tourism emerging in places like Barcelona or Venice, we can see that potentially happening in other cities. So we really want to have a conversation and kind of galvanize that this is not just something that a few cities need to think about, that we have to think about that across Europe, because many people around the world want to travel to European destinations.
Absolutely. Resonance uses something called the Place Power Score to rank the world's cities. For those who might not be familiar, could you tell us what that means in simple terms? What makes a city truly the best?
Well, it's interesting when you think about and ask that question of what makes a city the best depends on your point of view. Are you thinking about it as a city to live, in which case you might have one set of criteria? Are you thinking about it as a city to visit on vacation? You would have a different set of criteria. And if you're thinking about a city as a place to do business, you might have a different set of criteria. And then what we've really studied and developed the Place Power Score around is to consider all three of those dimensions in one ranking, which is the methodology around the livability, lovability, and prosperity, as opposed to just looking at livability or just looking at the economic indicators or just thinking about it as a place to visit. We're really taking a 360-degree view of the city, looking at it overall.
Absolutely. Yes, this is can be a personal choice and preference actually as well, like the weather, it's another thing. Now, this year you've gathered insights from over 21,000 people across 30 countries. That's a huge survey. Were there any surprises or perhaps changes in how people view the world's great cities today?
Well, you really start to see some regional variations. So when you look at Europeans, they mostly want to travel and live in European cities. There's a very strong preponderance for choosing European places. Versus when you go to North America, it's more balanced. Around 40% of North Americans want to travel or visit or live in North American cities, but 35% want to live or visit in European cities. And then when you go to Asia Pacific, you see that in the Asian countries, they mostly want to travel and visit in Asian countries, with about 65% want to travel to Asian destinations, and Europe is second. And then when you get to Latin America, you actually see that in Latin America, more people would like to live in Europe and visit European cities than Latin American or American destinations. So it's interesting to kind of observe the differences of how we look at cities from different points of view in different regions around the world.
You're seeing cities like Dubai and Bangkok predicted to grow their visitor numbers by more than 50% in the 2030s. What's behind this surge in new global tourism hotspots?
Well, obviously the demand for international travel is growing. We are forecasting with the UN that we'll hit 2 billion international visitors likely in 2029, which would be 2 years ahead of what was forecasted 10 years ago. So international travel is surging, but it's actually growing more on a regional basis than on a global basis. So when you look at where the growth is happening, whether that's in the Middle East or whether that's in Southeast Asia, that's driving a lot of the demand for the growth in places like Dubai, Bangkok, which we expect will be the fastest growing tourism economies when we look at it compared to other places around the world.
The report also mentions big themes like climate resilience and changing mobility patterns. How are these forces shaping the cities of tomorrow?
Well, the climate resilience is a new factor that we added in partnership with AlphaGeo, who have a methodology and approach to analyzing the climate risk and resilience of cities around the world. And I think that's a real important addition. We're not yet seeing the impact of climate change on perception. People still want to travel largely to the same places they wanted to travel to 10 years ago. But I do think over the next 10 years, we will start to see some changes as temperatures rise in particular cities. How will that affect the perception of the desirability of cities in southern Spain, Greece, India, etc., as temperatures exceed the 40 degrees and we have more days of heat stress in those places. So that's something we're keeping an eye on. But at the moment, right now, we've only added in that as a performance metric, and we'll see how that influences perception in the future.
Perhaps they will change the time of the year they are visiting these hot places.
Exactly.
How do you hope mayors, tourist boards and city planners will actually use your findings to make their cities more livable and lovable?
I think cities and governments appreciate economic development and all of the prosperity indicators. They also think about livability in terms of quality of life, parks and recreation. But they really don't actually think about the lovability of their cities in terms of the culture, vibrancy, the experiential quality of place. I think many city administrations, mayors think about that as a nice to have. And one of the things that we've done with our research is able to demonstrate the correlation between the vibrancy or the lovability of a city and its livability and its prosperity. And that really is the strongest message I try and communicate, is that you cannot look at these through three individual lenses, that this is an interrelated system, and to be successful as a place to live, you also need to be successful as a place to visit and also as a place to do business. And you can't really have one without the other.
Absolutely. Chris, thank you so much for sharing this insight. It's clear that the world's best cities report isn't just about rankings, it's a real window into how cities are evolving and competing to create better places for people to live, work and visit. That was Chris Fair, President of CAO of Resonance here at WTM London.
Thank you.
This is LGR, London Greek Radio.
Ο αγαπημένος σου ελληνικός σταθμός στα social media. Ακολούθησέ μας στο Instagram και στο TikTok, βρες μας στο Twitter και κάνε like στη σελίδα μας στο Facebook London Greek Radio.